Hey, everybody, this is Jason, your host of the Petrol Heads podcast. Welcome you into episode 2, where me and Dave review the Dutch Grand Prix and touch on some other news in the F1 world. I will admit, we had some things go down last minute, so we both were a little underprepared and we were not able to include everything that we would have liked to, but I promise it will only be up from here. We will include some of those missing parts in episode 3, where we will be previewing the Italian Grand Prix and giving you our predictions. So listen in, give us your thoughts, and as always, if you enjoyed, leave a comment or review and subscribe to the channel. Hope you guys enjoy. All right. So I wanted to touch on this Kevin Harvick stuff. I'm a huge Kevin Harvick fan, so I hate to do this. And not a big Max Verstappen fan. But I have some quarrel with what he had said. So for anyone that doesn't know, Kevin Harvick came on his podcast and basically, they always tout Kyle Larson as the best driver on the planet, which nothing against Kyle Larson. He's great. I think he, maybe you could argue that, but he came when this is the quote when he talked about Kyle Larson and versus Max Verstappen. And he said, the thing I can tell you that if Kyle Larson went to drive Max Verstappen's car, it wouldn't be just 1 or 2 days and he would be damn close to being as fast as Max Verstappen. I think
bold statement.
I think he's been hit in the head one too many times because that's, again, go ask the other F1 drivers that. Go ask, well, why isn't Perez just as fast as Max Verstappen? They're in the same car.
Well, since they think he's a godsend, everything that he jumps into, he's going to be like the best in their eyes.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a little bit of a complex. It's a little bit of that American versus European complex where it's like, they think they're better than us. And, but, and I guess the stereotype is that, or the stereotype is that like the Europeans are like, oh, you're driving around in a circle. And don't get me wrong, it has its own technique. And those guys that grow up in it, like, yeah, I don't believe that Max could just come over and pop in a stock car and be as fast as Kyle Larson. But there's a niche to that. Like, there's a niche to that kind of racing. Like, you put Max in Kyle Larson's car and put him around Road America, and he would walk circles on him, I think. I think he would be. It's like you go look, like, again, anytime a road racer comes in, like, look at Juan. And Juan was not as talented as Max Verstappen. Pablo Montoya, not to just give a first name. But, yeah, that to me is wild.
I'd like to see Kyle outside of the NASCAR world, all their junior leagues, all the way up to the Cup Series. Yeah, he's done Indy, but once, I'd like to see him do some rallying or, something else, any more open cars, GT cars, Le Mans style cars.
Yeah. Like, I think,
and then we can truly,
because I think
he'll either be exposed or his greatness will come through at that point,
Max would definitely be. I think, this is my opinion, that Max would be faster if they went into like the IMSA series. You put those guys in a couple of Corvettes in the GT class. Or put them in a couple of the prototypes, which are a little bit more Formula One speed, close to, and I think he'd crush him.
I think he's able to adapt faster. If they go into a new league, same cars, Max would be able to, in my opinion, be able to adapt quicker to the car, to the track, everything.
Yeah.
The technical aspects of it. Whereas Kyle, he's coming into it already behind, because NASCAR's very basic compared to Formula One as far as the control they have over the car, different things they can do, different.
I mean, go watch a video of how complicated an F1 steering wheel is.
Yeah.
You have to have a master's degree in arithmetic to figure it out.
So Kyle's already, behind a little bit in that aspect, but I mean, he did pretty good in Indy. Indy's a next step, but not as quite complex as Formula One.
But he was an IndyCar on an oval too. He wouldn't take him any
And how many times does he race there in a Cup car?
Right. And he said he even made the statement that it didn't feel much different than their Cup cars, which are not really stock cars anymore anyways. They're a lot like they're sports cars. They're more like the V8 supercars probably than anything.
Yeah.
They're not really stock cars anymore. And
I'd like to see him in that class, the Australian V8.
Yeah.
See how he can
interesting.
Be a little more his speed, I think.
I hate to go as far as to say this, but I think that I would even go as far to say if you take time out of the equation, Max could eventually get to the point where he could compete with Larson on ovals. I'm not sure Larson could ever get to the point where he could compete with Max in an F1 car.
I don't think so.
I don't think. And this is, like I said, if I was choosing between the two as people, you give me Kyle Larson. I like Kyle Larson, and I'm not my feelings about Max Verstappen, but yeah, I can't give that to Kyle.
And if Max were to come run, let's say, a full season of NASCAR, he's got the benefit of running every weekend too.
Yeah.
He doesn't have 2-week gaps, a month gap, or anything like that. It's every weekend.
Could you imagine that guy in a car with bumpers on it? We just had an example of it. Go watch Austin Dillon.
Yep.
That wouldn't be Max Verstappen. He'd run everyone out of there. Give him a car. It's got
and the fact that he knows that he can go take him out in the corner.
He knows he could just send it.
He'd love it.
No, yeah, he would. And I mean, I think he'd have got it because you see it there too. You put him in that Indy car, he'd have probably been right there. And he probably wouldn't have had a speeding penalty either. Yeah, those are the little things. But moving on, so. And then, the reason I wanted to talk about this was because I know that you've in the past had kind of connections with Haas. I guess you don't really now because, Gunther is not part of Haas anymore. But, for anyone that didn't know, in 2022, Haas had a Russian sponsorship. I don't really know. I'm probably going to butcher the pronouncing of it, but Uralkali, roughly, it was the company. And if anyone goes back in that time, that was when Russia invaded Ukraine. F1 pretty much cut all ties with Russian. Haas had a Russian driver at the time too. They got rid of Mazepin, and they cut ties with that sponsorship. That was
and the race. Well, Formula One ended stop going to Russia too.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's right. They don't have the Russian Grand Prix anymore. And so it was a $13 million sponsorship that they cut off early. It went to a hearing and a court ruled that Haas should refund the Russian sponsorship part of the money that they were given. Apparently, Haas ran past the deadline. I guess the deadline had been set 2 years, maybe, I guess, because it was, July deadline. And so there was some apparently bailiffs and police in the pit lane at Zandvoort that basically was holding their assets until they paid the money. I think news is that it was sent. It just needed to be cleared, I guess. And so they were going to be able to go home, but that's pretty wild.
I'd like to know what amount they came up with. That they were like, all right, look, we need $10 million. These guys walk into the garage and like, yeah, it looks about $10 million, you know? Or if they're, close, because, Haas is really the only one that knows the true cost of those vehicles, the garage setup, tools, everything. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to be.
It's interesting that they were. I'm just really surprised that they were able to go to that extreme.
It's probably
hold.
I would say like a show of force. Like, look, we can have the police come in, whatever country you're in, and freeze your assets. But smart on Haas, and saying like, well, don't do that. We've got your money right here.
I wonder if they were.
Can't help the sanctions.
Was it Russian police or like local police? Because then it's like, what law does that? Who is that Russian law that says like we have the ability? Because I don't think you could do that here in the U.S.
No, it was
like if somebody.
It was local authorities.
Like if I had a company and you had a company and I hired you to sponsor my company and then I canceled the contract and owed you money, you couldn't just show up at my company and go, yeah, you're not going anywhere until I get my money. Mm-hmm. So this was like a Russian power thing, kind of. Yeah, you don't want to mess with them. But hopefully that gets squared away.
Probably just a few click of the buttons, money sent.
It's just kind of sketchy. I don't know.
I wonder if they walked in there like mafiosos. They're like, we're here for your shit.
Yeah. Come off of it right now.
They're pretty dry.
Like they came out in the mafia.
Yeah, they're pretty dry in, that part of the world. And they probably just come in stone cold, no emotions.
That's, I feel like Russia's one.
What do you think the mechanics think? They're probably like, what the fuck? Like, you want to pack this up for us? Okay, no problem.
Look like some of those dudes from The Machine, just some jacked Russians, all tatted up and everything. Mm-hmm. Like, give me your shit. All right, well, so let's move on to the Dutch Grand Prix review. So we start off, race ranking. I almost forgot about that. So ranking the race. On a scale 0 to 10, what do you give it?
6 out of 10.
Yeah. That's good.
You had some midfield action.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 as well. I agree with that. It's because I had to kind of think about it a little bit. It was actually when I was going back. And because it kind of, I guess it did feel, I don't know, maybe part of it was because I was watching Hamilton's race a lot. And so it was kind of like, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of overtakes, but the rest of it just wasn't much.
Yeah.
So we had,
let me see if I can remember. Lando, Max, Charles, Oscar, Perez.
No. So
Carlos.
It was Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Nico Hulkenberg, Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, Alexander Albon, Esteban Ocon, Logan Sargent, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen, Valtteri Bottas, and Zhou Guanyu.
Saubers.
Oh,
Kicks.
dude, it's kind of
Kick him to the
it's
curb.
a little bit of an embarrassment. But even worse, like everybody kind of knocks on Logan Sargent, but I think Joe's worse because he finished 30 seconds behind Valtteri.
And they were both laps.
Twice. They were both 2 laps down. Like that is, the whole field was lapped up to Lewis, which shows you, that's, Formula A versus Formula B. They're just in another class, but yeah, Lando came home with the win, and the pace of that car was his pace, I have to say.
He better be counting his blessings that he had that pace in the car, because he muffed it up again.
And I wonder, which I give him a little bit of grace this time, because the reaction time was the same between him and Max, but for some reason the car spun its wheels, and it also happened to Oscar. So maybe it was a racing line, because they were on the racing line, and then Max and I can't remember who started in fourth. George Russell. Max jumped to first, and George jumped into third.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was a little bit had to do with that. But when they brought up his reaction time, it was the same as Max's. So I think it was just maybe something to do with a combination of everything. Maybe the car, and then, the racing line, whatever. But we
coming out of turn one, I would love to know what he's thinking. He's probably like, "Damn it, here we go again."
Fucking deja vu, son of a bitch. Yeah,
and you almost have to reset yourself too, because after that, now that you're chasing, you're not being chased. It switches you, and you just want to be right there the whole time, but you've got to just slow down.
Well, I think he kind of talked about it, where I think he was like, Max is going to start trying to pull away here, lap 5, 6, and then he didn't. So then he was like, oh, okay, wait, hang on, I'm still in this. But that was when they also had that radio message that I just don't think it was for him, but his race engineer come on and was like, who are we racing, the driver behind or the driver in front? And Lando was like, I don't know, the driver in front. I want to win. Why are you asking me? And so it was very, I don't think that radio message was for him, because the reason I caught it is because, again, I critiqued McLaren's radio, work in the past, where I think that just sometimes they lack some championship winning, decision making and sticking to things. But I don't think that one was for him. But if it was, that's really weird.
Yeah, he probably was trying to talk to the strategist and hit the wrong button.
Yeah, because even Martin Brundle was like, "Oh, it's a head scratcher."
Yeah,
not sure on that one, but I don't know. Yeah, but he ended up looking good. The gyro cam too.
I do like that.
That was really cool. Yeah. Where you could see like the banking. Mm-hmm. It's so cool. That was really cool. So they did a good job with that. But I called that one, I think, because I said Norris would get back to form, and boy, did he ever. I guess maybe I think, to me, that race was a little bit of a reminder of, like, okay, yeah, he's still that good.
What he can do, yeah.
Because he was miles ahead of Oscar. I think we got a little wrapped up in that old the Oscar love there for a little bit. Not to take anything away from him, but yeah. But and it at first I was like, okay, maybe it's clean air, but then he goes and on the very last lap of the race on quite old tires set the fastest lap time. That's when I was like, all right, you got me. I can't say shit on you this time. I mean, that was just a total freaking, that was such a flex.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was.
What a flex that was. And it was good. But
it's interesting to see the pendulum swing, because it's Oscar 1 week. It looks like he's on top form.
Yeah.
And then it goes to Lando, and let's just see how long it stays on this side. And I think, it could be down to track layout too. Maybe he's not as comfortable there as, say, Hungary or, other places like that throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, none of the drivers there really have a whole lot of experience on Zandvoort except Max. But Oscar, I mean, no, he's only raced there one other time, and that would have been last year.
Yeah, I don't know if he car. Yeah, I don't know if he did F2 there or not.
I don't know. Yeah,
I'm sure he did.
I don't know if F2, maybe, but it's still a completely different car too. So
yeah,
but because I mean, you can make the clean air argument, but I mean, Lando didn't have no problem passing Max, and Oscar could not get Leclerc at the end.
Yeah,
and I definitely the Red Bull's faster than the Ferrari.
Yeah,
it's not.
Well, when he Charles was ahead, when Oscar pitted, I think all off. Well, he was definitely pushing Charles along. He wasn't letting him breathe at all.
Leclerc undercut him and Russell.
Yeah,
and I thought he'd have got it back, but because I didn't think that Ferrari pace was there. So I mean, good on him. That's you got to give him a lot of credit. I said he would bounce back too. So.
He did look pretty good.
A guru right here. Because he had a good race, and they looked rough in practice and not too great in qualifying.
I don't think the wind helped, the rain. It was just mixed conditions, but I think once the sun was out, for the race, and they were able to kind of balance out, be where they were, show a truer picture. Maybe that car's just very aero sensitive, so and it was gusting there too. It was windy, so going into each turn, everything's going to be a little different, and maybe that car just doesn't handle it as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could. Yeah, I mean, it could be that the Ferrari was just that touch faster in a straight line because of the setup. Maybe Red Bull put a little bit more downforce because Max was complaining about the car sliding around a lot. And then, maybe, I don't know. I'd be surprised at that because Red Bull's usually quite quick in a straight line, and their DRS works pretty well, but they did. Go ahead.
I think they were just chewing up their tires too much.
Yeah, which they also, I don't think, had any upgrades for this race, and McLaren had quite a few. Because I was going to say, you're talking about that, the pendulum swinging. It's like, I love seeing Lando win, but then it's like, I don't want to see it go that. You don't want to just flip flop it and go like Red Bull domination to McLaren domination.
So let's see, he's down 70 points to Max. I would like to. I mean, a couple DNFs and
crazy.
And if he keeps chipping away, I mean, he's right there.
Crazy statistic, is if you, according to Matt Baker, not Matt Baker, Matt Gallagher, he said that if you take out the fastest lap point, you don't include that. If he wins every single race for the rest of the year, and Max finishes second, he'll lose to Max in the championship by 7 points. That would be, oh man, if it comes down to those, like, ends up maybe like 5 points or something.
Shows you how important those points are now.
Yeah, that's gonna really hurt.
Yeah, when you start simulating it out, and you're like, these 1 or 2 points, are going to be crucial.
On the flip side of that, to make the argument there is you go, well, if the car's that good and they have Oscar happy, you have Oscar and P2 there more often than none. And that's a lot more points game than Lando can
bigger,
get.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely a huge flex by McLaren, but a little bit of a missed opportunity there, because if they'd have got a 1-2, and
it'd be a different story.
It should have been on the cards.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, Oscar, a little knock on him. I don't know. I don't know if, because he really struggled there in the first stint. When they went on the hards, he got better, but he struggled a bit there on that first stint. So yeah,
it could just be a comfort thing, like he's like, this is, out of all the tracks we go to, this is probably, lowest 5 that I'm most comfortable with. It could be that, and
what's what they said.
Or hell, maybe he had a shitty Wednesday and Thursday, and he could never recover. So he's going into the weekend just not in the right headspace either.
Yeah. And I don't know. Maybe they do. They are the same car, but they're going to have slightly different setups.
Yeah.
One driver is going to prefer something a little different,
because
Perez, that's a strong race.
He had decent showing.
Yeah, that for where he's been.
He needed that coming off a break.
Yeah, and that was apparently one of his weaker tracks too, according to Christian Horner. So, if he runs off of that, they might be able to get some momentum there. But
don't mess it up, Perez.
Yeah. So back to that car comparison. So I don't know what happened in qualifying with Mercedes. Like that befuddled me, because you had
Lewis is trash. He's a has-been.
Lewis was he was. He ran, his Q1 was great, and George struggled, and then it immediately flipped. And then Lewis is out in Q2, and it was like, where in the world did his pace go? And he said it was the tires were cold. Like they couldn't get the tires switched on. He couldn't get it.
Well, even in the beginning phase of the race, he was complaining he just has no top end. He's not, he can't catch up to the guys.
But like we touched on last week, where I talk about when you're comparing Lewis to George. George started 4th, P4. Lewis started P14. They had the same amount of pit stops, and Lewis finished 3 seconds behind him. 4 seconds.
Maybe George is like, we'll just let him catch up.
Well, but they both had very different responses at the end of the race, because Lewis was like, the pace was really good. Like if we hadn't have muttered qualifying, I think I'd have been close to a podium. I could have fought for the podium, but Russell had, no pace. There was no race pace at all. And he said that, well, I don't know. He just was like, I don't know where the pace went. It was a mystery. But that's a lot of time that Lewis caught up on George.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't if it's like George wasn't pushing.
Yeah, he was scrapping too.
Yeah.
So he had his own battles out there.
That was
I just couldn't remember if he was running into traffic at all, or just kind of.
Lewis was just overtaking. Lewis had to overtake a bunch of people, so he'd have a better excuse. Really, George, I don't think had to do a lot.
George's probably doing more defending since he went backwards.
Well, he was sitting in P5, and then Carlos started putting pressure on him. And so they did the same to him and boxed for softs a little after Lewis. I called that too. I was looking at it. I was like, you know what they should do? I said they have a free pit stop, box with like 20 laps left, and let hammer time. Just do quali lap after quali lap.
What's crazy, even on softs, low fuel, they couldn't even get the fastest lap from Lando.
Yeah.
You know?
He did momentarily, but then on the last lap, Lando was like, oh, hey, like, you could have beat everyone by a minute at that pace. Like, where did I don't know. That was super impressive. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really good recovery drive by Lewis.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, I mean, he just always shows up in the race.
And George is just having to defend more, probably, and wore his tires out a little bit more, and maybe just wore himself out a little bit,
I just don't think he's as good.
Yeah, that's part of it.
If you're a Mercedes too, you got to be I think that's why they have this big push for Max, and then like Kimi is hailed as like potentially being like the next Lewis, that kind of level of talent, the next Lewis, next Max. Because I just don't know if George is that guy.
Let's at least get him to the end of the season, see where he finishes.
Yeah. He's got to get a better race pace, though. That's for sure. At least consistently.
Where are they at in the points right now? Because I'd like to see George finish ahead.
Well, I know Lewis is ahead now. Yeah, Lewis 154 points. George Russell 122 points.
Oof.
Yeah, Lewis has got 2 wins, 4 podiums. George Russell has 1 win, 2 podiums.
The disqualification hurt him.
But he's so much faster at qualifying.
Yeah, disqualification.
The DQ. Yeah, that was that played a lot of it. So, I mean, you can't. It's not really his fault. And then the
should have been underway, bud.
The water pump. Yeah. Shouldn't have took that dump before the race.
Should have gone for 2 stops.
What he should have done was like, oops, I missed the pit exit, and I got to go up here and make a little U-turn real quick.
Too bad they could do like NASCAR or something. Like you got mechanics when he's going down the pit road, pouring stuff in his car, in the cockpit.
Yeah, that would have been, man. That's it's tough, but I think I don't know. I think that I wish Lewis could have been up there, because I want to say, like, I think that was more of realistic where their car is. But I think it's an in between.
30 seconds off the pace?
I think it's well, let's hope not, but I think it's a little bit of in between George's and Lewis's. Like, I think Lewis in that race, kind of in the race pace wise, probably was a little, boxing a little bit above where that car is, and then George was beneath. Because I mean, the Mercedes I still think has a better car than Ferrari, but he was about to be overtaken by Carlos. I mean, that's why they pit him.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Leclerc I don't know. F1's a mystery sometimes. That's
a good thing, that they go to many different tracks, because some are going to be strong here, stronger other places, so it's always a balance. Yeah. You just got to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Now, if they go into Monza, Mercedes goes into Monza complaining of top speed, they are going to be lapped.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Lewis did complain a little bit about that at Zandvoort, but I wonder if they just maybe gave him a little bit more downforce so he could, because they knew he was going to be, weaving through, because it's like top you don't really need straight line speed that much as much as Zandvoort, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was more of the exit of the
Yeah.
banking corner and getting that right so you could,
Mm-hmm.
and set yourself up to that point where you would need a little bit more downforce. So they maybe, maybe they went that way and it worked really well with the car because he didn't have any he said that at one point, but I was like, you're not having problems passing people. You went up through the field and then you basically had to do it twice because he went back down. He got up to I think he got up to P8 and then pitted and then got back and went back all the way to, I don't know, it was like P15 or something. He went back there quite a bit.
Well,
There was a few of them that pitted, but he had to retake, he had to overtake.
better dial it in, because if not, I'm calling half a second a lap. They'd be off the pace.
At Monza?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's
4
going to be
tenths.
really interesting.
Yeah,
That one will definitely be an interesting race.
Got a new wider turn 1. Hopefully that'll give us more side by side through there.
Yeah.
Going all the way into 3 and 4. Yeah, that'll be good.
Which that track's, it's not the best at overtaking either, though, is it? I feel like it's not. It's hard to overtake there.
Well, I mean, you could do it into 1, into 3, 4, 5, maybe the chicane. But yeah, then you just have to stay close the rest of the lap.
Yeah.
DRS on the front. I don't know if they don't have it on the back, right? Just the.
That's what I was actually looking to see if I could.
Yeah, so right there before the.
No, they just have 2. So they have right before 7, they have a detection zone, and then right after 11, coming out of 11, the final corner. So
I think we'll have a decent amount of passing, especially in the midfield. If Alpine keeps up their form that they showed in Zandvoort, hell, they could be moving up the field. They could be a big mover second half of the season.
Yeah. Last year it was, wow, it was literally.
Or it could be just a one-off and to the back.
Yeah. It was Max Perez, Sainz Leclerc, Russell Hamilton. So it was just, that was pretty, and that was basically the performance of the cars at that point last year. So yeah, that'll be, it'll be interesting to see. I definitely think McLaren will be the best. I think, if not, I don't know.
I think they'll be able to run longer on whatever tire they're on, and that'll help them out huge.
And yeah, I think the Red Bull will. Maybe the Red Bull will.
Red Bull's fast now. It's going to be,
it's a straight line.
Now you're getting into their domain, where they're good on the high.
Yeah.
The low downforce.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what that. Yeah. So that'll be interesting.
Did you see the Martin Brundle report when he said Max is purposely driving slower, and all the conspiracy theorists now are saying, or just how they interpret it. So one side of the coin is saying he's doing it on purpose, because the Verstappens want to get Horner out and get somebody new in there. So what they're doing is purposely driving slower to look like the car's, turning into shit, basically. Max is, I can't drive this,
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, they force Horner out. Or the other side is, now, I like the conspiracy side of it.
Yeah. It's interesting to touch on. It's interesting to talk about.
Yeah. But then, maybe Max just knew his fate from the beginning, and he was just in, salvaging as many points as he can get. And he was just preserving the car for later on. So he wasn't purposely slowing down, to like some, to get Horner out. It was just to preserve the car for later in the year so they don't take as many penalties again.
Well, I heard another one even today was that Red Bull are purposely not trying to win the Constructors' Championship so they can get more wind tunnel time. I thought that was pretty interesting. Not that I believe in it at all, but I mean, they also, I don't know. There could be some truth to it because I don't really think they care all that much about the constructors. I mean, obviously the money's great, but I don't think Red Bull will have a funding issue.
Well, they might, be in a case where, they realize internally that their developments are trash. They're just going backwards at this point. So now they're trying to dial back what they did and putting old parts on and, trying to find the right balance again.
Yeah.
So I think they're definitely going for the constructors. I think
it's just
because think about that's everybody there in the factory. 500, 600, however many people. That's what they're fighting for. And then if it does come out that they're like, fuck the constructors. People there are going to be like, well, what are we doing here?
Maybe.
And then
I don't know. But is it?
They'd have a mutiny on their hands.
Do they kind of know, or do they know though? Like, hey, here at Red Bull, like it's a marketing thing, and so we're trying to have the ego. We're all about the drivers' championship, because I just don't.
Maybe it's the fact that Newey's gone, so they're like they're worried, because what if Newey just looks at the car? He's like, oh yeah, just change this a little bit right here, and now they don't have the engineers with that touch.
Well, so yeah, so now they need to. You have all these people leaving too, and and it doesn't. And I don't know. There eventually has to be some truth to it when you talk, when all these rumors and everything keep coming out that things are not very stable there. There's eventually got to be some truth to it, because again, you apparently Verstappen, Jos, is that what his name is? And Christian Horner are like butting heads.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of that is just like, what, just because you're Max's dad? If I was Christian Horner, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. But I guess you can't as Christian Horner. I mean,
it's crazy to see the father-son dynamic, how loud and in the news Max's dad is versus, say, Lewis Hamilton's dad, where you just see his dad, cheering Lewis on, and when he's down, he's helping him pick him back up, but you don't hear him in the news saying, oh, Toto, sorry bud, you suck, you gotta go, type of thing, or building a conspiracy, behind the scenes type of thing.
I don't know, man. I think that whole Verstappen family is a little dysfunctional. I think
a little chaotic.
They created a monster anyway,
Yeah, because pretty soon, you got to keep feeding that monster, and it's only going to get bigger and worse. Pretty soon, everybody's going to be like, man, remember when Max was like somewhat of a decent human being? Like, now he's just horrible, and nobody's going to want him,
I just can't see him working at Mercedes. I don't see how that. I just don't see that happening, because like I don't know if you ever heard like Nico talk much about Rosberg talk much about like their time. Like Mercedes came down on them. They eventually told Nico and Lewis, they said, if you keep like, all right, fuckers, from now on, you break the car, you're paying for it.
Yeah, I have heard that. Yeah.
And Nico, that's what Nico Rosberg said, and it was kind of like, well, it calmed us down a little bit.
Then it cost him like $250,000. Something.
They definitely,
a good amount.
Yeah, I mean, he had to, because it's like they were, it's like you're getting in each other's way.
But that's the way to do it, though, because look what happened after that. Giving each other a lot of room, and following orders, and just
and he won a championship, and then was like, "Peace,
Yeah.
can't do this no more."
Yeah. But
And-
that's the thing. If Max comes in and he wins, you, all the bad stuff is kind of mute at that point. But if he doesn't come in and win right away, and he's coming with the attitude, I think Mercedes is the type of organization where they're going to be like, that shit doesn't fly here. See,
yeah, I think if he did go anywhere, it won't be until 2026, 27. I just don't. I don't.
Could be a whole new regime at Mercedes too. You never know.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, so what would you do then? That so if they bring Kimmy in and Kimmy starts performing like they think Kimmy, what are you gonna do? Get rid of George? I just say,
I mean,
sorry, pretty boy.
you're gonna have to evaluate his performance. Yeah, if he's fallen, then they'd probably do the same thing they did with Valtteri. They're like, all right, George, we're just gonna give you a year contract, nothing extended. And George would probably be like, what?
Yeah, I don't want any part of that. I would hate to be in that organization to have to deal with all that drama.
Mercedes or Red Bull?
Red Bull.
Oh.
No, Mercedes I think would be great to work for. I mean, you don't really ever hear any of that bullshit coming out of there.
I think every place has it. It's just this severity of it, right? Some places are going to be either more in the news or they're going to be quiet about it, but they have a lot of shit going on, so you get it everywhere. It's just how much you really want to deal with it,
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah.
But if you were there for, say 8-10 years and all this bullshit happened, you'd be very annoyed very fast. And you'd be like, let's just send this resume out here, and, cut ties and,
Yeah.
Because like NASCAR, all those guys are pretty much right there in England, with a stone's throw from each other. So it's nothing for all these, mechanics just to go to a different team,
I mean, well, yeah, for the most part. So, because you got, Kick is in Switzerland. Ferrari's in Italy.
So is Alpha or the Visa car, RB car.
Is it in? Oh, it's in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Now Red Bull, it's in England, right? And then Alpine's in England. Mercedes is in England.
Alpine is France.
No, I think they're based. I think their headquarters is in England.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, again, Mercedes, they're in England.
Yeah.
They're not in, but I'm pretty sure because I don't know. There was an episode of Top Gear where, there's like a point in England, like a really high point in England where you can basically kind of see the general area of like where they are. And he pointed out a bunch of different ones. And I'm pretty sure Renault at that time was one of them. So I think Alpine is there. And
Aston Martin's there.
Aston Martin, yeah. That was the other one. I think that's pretty much everybody, right?
Williams.
Out? Oh, yeah, Williams. Williams is there.
Haas. They're there.
Are they there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't know where they were. Do they have any? I mean, do they have anything over here?
It's more their manufacturing.
Yeah.
They're all their machine. It's their machine shop.
Because the car is just a, like, don't they even get their chassis from Ferrari?
I don't know how much of it they get. I know it's like some suspension parts, transmission, engine, but
definitely know the engine is, yeah.
They might do their own floor. I'm not 100% on that one.
Yeah.
But a lot of their technical offices are at Ferrari headquarters, so
yeah,
they could. The assembly shops in England.
A lot more secretive about that stuff over there. Like NASCAR, you could find out everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. But then like NASCAR now, they don't do, the car is basically presented to them. They're like, yeah, this is the car.
I like when
you have to buy the car basically. And I think it's pretty much the manufacturers that are building them now. They have very little that they can do with them anymore.
I like when, other drivers look at each other's cars, in pit lane after the end of the race or qualifying or whatever.
Alonso.
Yeah, did you see it?
On his
He was
hands and
all
knees. Yeah, up there to check out the diffuser.
I mean, it wasn't just like a quick, like, oh, okay. It was like
he was like, "What? Fucking rocket underneath there?" Like,
it was funny.
He's like, "I used to race for this team, and this was not there.
Sergio,
where was this pace when I was there?"
Sergio was walking by him. He's like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
I know they always used to do that. Seb used to do that a lot. Lewis occasionally, like, he would go over and like check out the Red Bull and be like, "What are they doing?"
Well, when they do the driver photos, the team photos in the beginning of the year, for F1, and how they always line the cars up and the drivers.
Yeah.
That's the time when everybody's like, but
I think it's so cool how, like, it's so interesting how different the different like the engine sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like because they watched a lot of Gasly. I was going to say, like, Gasly had a really good race.
Mm-hmm.
He had a really good, impressive race. And when they would, like, show his, onboard camera, like, that car sounds, I mean, the Mercedes, the Ferrari, the Red Bull, they all have a completely different engine tone.
Yeah, I do like that.
And that Alpine sounds weird. It has a completely different sound to it.
Almost like a heavier whine, to it.
It's very strange. But yeah, and I guess it shows you how much still creative freedom they have there, because Cup engines, they're all the same.
Well, they're switching to the Mercedes, though, aren't they?
Who
is an Alpine in like 2026 or something like that?
I don't know if that's. I think that I don't know if anything's confirmed.
Oh,
because the rumor is that Alpine's just trying to get rid of it completely.
Yeah, they're probably like, we gotta get this turd of a fucking engine out of here.
Well, I think Alpine just doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. I think that they just want to sell the whole team.
Andretti's got to buy it up.
And maybe, hey, Andretti, come get it. I don't know. I mean, they have to give them some credit. They were stone dead last at the beginning of the season, and that was some pretty good. That was a pretty good pace by Gasly. Ocon had no pace, but what I was impressive to me by Gasly was just like you saw it. You saw the moves. It wasn't just race pace and him just having a quiet little race. Like he was, he had that. Was it turn one? He had that
along the outside. Yeah,
oh, dude, he had that down pat.
Use the banking and
yeah, he was really good. He was showing some really impressive craft there. So
where did Esteban finish?
Like, what was it, like 15th or something? Was it?
Yeah,
it wasn't good.
He's probably over it. He's like, I'm moving on next year.
17th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did not have a good qualifying, so
Pierre, yeah, he's sitting there going, I'm gonna make sure everybody knows I'm the number one next year.
Yeah.
No matter who comes in, this is mine. I heard an interesting rumor today that Williams is over Sargent. Because they had that big upgrade on their car, and he completely destroyed it in practice.
That was a rough shunt too.
Yeah, and so they're not going to have backups. I'm sure. Because they were off, they couldn't touch the car, or they couldn't work on the car, so they had to do this before break. Get those upgrades ready. So all they have to do is just bolt it on the week prior and send it. But yeah, so I'm sure no backups. They had to go back to an old spec on there, and he's just the amount of money he's costing them. So they're over him. So they're thinking. What I heard is that they could sack him for the rest of the year and maybe put Mick in there.
That'd be all right.
Be good.
I mean, you got to feel for Mick. I don't know. I mean, maybe he still gets another opportunity.
Just sitting there, yeah. I mean, it'd be a good filler, for him to hopefully get his feet wet again if he's going to get a drive next year. If he's still trying to go for the Alpine. This would be a good, get him ready for the next season. Oh, he still got it. Boom, let's sign him. Type of thing. Maybe
Yeah,
not
because
still got it, but
just,
it's like can still drive.
This is I don't know. I feel like that stint at Haas was just not. It's hard to judge him from that. At least in my opinion. Maybe they know more than we do, and it's rough because that car was so bad during that time, and you've got him and Mazepin. These guys aren't really going to be able to develop a car.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. It's hard. It's tough to, have his full potential from that.
I mean, he could be 100% comfortable in the car. If the atmosphere around him is not there, then he's going to be just, walking on eggshells. So he's just going to be.
Yeah, and
you won't get the best out of him.
Could you imagine Mazepin as your teammate? I'd be down in the dumps all the time too.
I'd be like, well, on a positive side, I'd be like, I know I could beat this motherfucker.
I mean, he pretty much did all the time. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it wraps things up. We're going about an hour here. Been trying to keep it. I know our episode 1 was a little longer, so we want to keep these a little shorter. So, but yeah, so still ironing out this. I want to kind of maybe bring in some more segments to these races. But yeah, I'd like to have later on to do. I'd like to have a second episode, hopefully before the next week, and we'll preview Monza and touch on that a little bit. But that was the Dutch Grand Prix, and again, if you like the stuff, like the channel. Well, subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
Dutch Grand Prix, 6 out of 10. Petrolheads Podcast, 10 out of 10.
Hell yeah.